If you are watching this video, it's because we survived. Although now we're gonna get run over by a car. Alright, seriously, if you're watching this video, it's because we survived. It's terrible, just terrible.
Awesome!
Are you nervous?
So this is actually something of a sponsored video because one of the fringe benefits of having reached the 100,000 subscriber mark is now when I reach out to people and I say like, dude, I got like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, can you give us like 2 free tickets to do the zip line at Mont Tremblant? Because we already did one video a while back in Whistler, BC, where I rode the longest zip line in North America and it was awesome. It got like 15,000 views.
I'm gonna kind of sit down into your harness, bend your knees.
Oh my God! And they're like, dude, yeah, totally, I'll give you 2 tickets, you for you and your kid, right here. We're doing the Ziptrek Eco Tour Zipline at Mont Tremblant. Do we see it right here? Whatever. And we're gonna do a vlog about liability waivers. Do you know what a liability waiver is?
Something you have to sign, so like if you die, they're not responsible.
Close enough. Liability waivers raise very serious questions of law that are very interesting for the... Okay, I'm joking. Just hold this for 1 second. This is the liability waiver. Participant's name, okay, whatever, initial. I am aware of the risks, dangers, and hazards associated with adventure activities, and I freely choose to accept and fully assume all such risks, dangers, and hazards, and possibility of personal injury, death, property damage. All right, dude, I think you can stop recording now and I'll fill this out and then we'll... All right, sir, so you have confirmed that you are good to be in a YouTube video?
I'm all good.
Okay, can you tell us what we're gonna do now based on this very chart here?
Sure. So you guys are gonna be on the hills for about 3 hours long.
3 hours?
You're gonna take the gondola all the way to the summit. There's gonna be a little walk first of all, and 5 lines in total. It's gonna start off pretty easy, 200 meters, so you get used to it. And it starts being longer and longer. So the 3rd and 4th one are the longest in Quebec. They're over 1 kilometer long each. There's gonna be about like 40-minute long walk.
40 minutes of hiking, we're gonna spend some quality time together in the forest. I did the Sasquatch in Whistler, it was awesome. The 2 longest lines are over 1 kilometer long. Booyah. How fast do we go?
Over 100 kilometers an hour.
Over 100 kilometers an hour, booyah. Now we are substantially early, but like I always say, it is better to be 1 hour early than 1 minute late. And I'm going to set up the camera here and talk to the camera in front of all these people for no apparent reason, just to embarrass my daughter and show her what is involved in making a vlog. We're going to do an awesome time lapse. Just stay like this and let all the people behind us go by in fast motion.
No!
Do it.
No. Mom, no.
You think those kids behind us bouncing on those stretchy things signed a liability waiver? I think they did. Oh my God, that kid's rock climbing. The equipment looks nice and new. All right. It's a good thing this helmet has a nice body to protect it in case of a fall. The helmet is not for falling. The helmet is for when you get to the end of the zip line. Every now and again you bounce up and you can hit your head on the cable.
Are you nervous?
A little.
Is the harsh reality of what you signed up for finally settling in?
No, I want to do it.
Ouais, fait que dans le fond, il y avait une tribu algonquienne qui vivait sur la montagne. Puis les autres, ils croyaient dans un dieu de la nature qui s'appelait le Grand Manitou.
Alright, we're here. Booyah! Right. Top of Mont Tremblant. Some interesting facts that we just learned in the gondola ride up. Mont Tremblant literally translates into the shaking mountain in French. Tremblant, trembling. And it came from apparently the fact that the Algonquins thought that whenever they did something wrong or bad, the mountain would shake and it was the gods punishing them or giving them a warning. And in reality, apparently it's because of the fact that so much water filters off this mountain that occasionally it can feel like it's vibrating.
Oh, and this mountain used to be as tall as Mount Everest.
Apparently the mountains out here used to be as tall as Mount Everest, but given erosion, ice ages, and so on and so forth, they have been weathered down to a few hundred meters and generally much flatter, more rounded, rolling hills like you see here. All right, if I have ever seen a Corona ad, This is the Corona ad. Most dangerous thing that can possibly happen, you fly into a bird as you're going down on the zip line.
It's totally gonna happen.
It's totally gonna happen. It happens all the time. If it happens, you're the luckiest person on earth. We're gonna buy a lottery ticket. Oh yes, look at this. You're going first.
And now we send. And when you're ready, you count. 3, 2, 1. Woo!
And here we go. Oh gosh, my groin is getting crushed. The thing about liability waivers is that the Supreme Court of Canada has recognized that they are, in fact, legally binding if drafted properly. Wow! This is awesome! What's gonna happen here? What's gonna happen here? Oh my gosh! Actually, that was surprisingly smooth. So liability waivers, if drafted properly, are in fact legally binding. With some exceptions, because it doesn't mean that if you signed a liability waiver that you cannot sue.
There you go.
Thank you. We made it through leg 1. How are you doing?
It was fun.
Okay, à go. Ok, 1, 2, 3, go.
Oh yeah! So in order to be legally binding, a waiver, oh nuts, I'm backwards. A liability waiver has to clearly coming in, I can't see anything. There we go. Boom! Oh wow! Wow! All right, in case you didn't hear that, in order to be legally binding, a liability waiver has to clearly circumscribe the risks associated with the activity. That was good. Went backwards there, so I don't know if the audio is going to be all that good. If the injury results from something that was not included in the liability waiver may not be legally binding.
I could be right. Here.
Thank you. All right, so what does it mean that the liability waiver has to clearly circumscribe the risks associated with the activity? Let's just say that you go skiing and you break your leg on the ski hill. If you have signed a liability waiver, in theory, it would cover the act of breaking your leg while skiing. But let's say, for example, you get electrocuted while sitting on the chairlift. That might not be included in a validly binding liability waiver because one does not expect to get electrocuted when skiing. That is not necessarily one of the risks associated with the activity.
Wait, so what would happen?
You would sue. And that liability waiver would probably not be binding and exonerate the company from liability if you get electrocuted while, what did I say, skiing?
No,
water
while
skiing.
going up the chairlift.
While going up the chairlift. The ultimate bottom line is just because you've signed a liability waiver doesn't mean that you can no longer sue. It just means that you might not be able to succeed on certain claims when the injury directly results from certain risks associated with the activity. Now the question is, are liability waivers binding when parents or guardians sign them on behalf of their children? And for the answer to that question, you're gonna have to wait for the next Zipline. Oh, this is good. This one's good. So the question is, are liability waivers binding on minors? Oh, get that rope out of the way. That rope is in the way. Are liability waivers binding on minors? The answer is yes and no, depending on the court. Some courts have held that a parent or guardian cannot sign away the rights to a minor because it is not in the interest, it's not in the best interest of that minor. And so some courts have held that the minor can in fact sue for damages they sustained despite a guardian or parent signing them away when they become a major. Oh, there's a lot of wind out there.
Yeah!
Woo!
Hey, you're barely made it.
I know, and I'm 160.
Okay, just over here.
So a minor is not necessarily deprived of any and all recourse they may have in the event that they are injured, despite the fact that their parent or guardian may have signed a liability waiver. Although oftentimes people do think that the minor has no rights given the fact that the parent in fact signed a liability waiver. All right, we are at the second to last one here. This is the longest one on the course. 1.1 kilometer? Almost 1.1 kilometers. So the question is this: when is a liability waiver not binding? No one can sign away an act. Forget it. Woo! Oh my God! Am I upside down? Yeah, I'm upside down. I'm upside down.
upside down. There we go. There we go. Upside down. Booyah. When is a liability waiver not binding? One can never contract away one's own gross negligence or deliberate acts of fraud or wrongdoing. So a liability waiver can never legally and lawfully exonerate someone, a service provider, a company, from an act of their own gross negligence, willful fraud, and reckless disregard, etc. How's it going?
Good.
That was awesome.
That was good.
So even if a liability waiver says you can't hold us responsible for gross negligence, fraud, acts of violence, etc., that is not legally binding.
I think you in the back.
That was glorious.
Nice.
I believe I was upside down for a second. All right, so all vlogs aside, this is absolutely glorious. This is not quite as majestic as the Rocky Mountains of British Columbia, but it can't easily get much more beautiful than this. Laurentian Mountains of Quebec, beautiful rolling hills. That's a ski hill over there. Mont Tremblant is about 870 meters high, which is nothing by West Coast standards. And the rest of the mountains are about 300 meters. It's just beautiful. When you look at the patterns of the mountains, you can actually see the direction in which the glaciers receded, because they leave the mountains rolling, but rolling in a sort of breast-like pattern, round on one side and then more sloped on the other. Now we're doing the hike to the last of the 5 zip lines. Have you had a good time?
Yeah.
Have you learnt about law and nature?
Sure.
Last zip line of the day. Okay, we got this, we got this. There we go. Okay, holding it steady. So all that to say is, just because you signed a liability waiver doesn't mean you don't have any rights. The validity of a liability waiver has to be recognized by the courts. Wow! Oh yeah, look at that! No, I don't want to flip! I don't want to flip! Oh, I'm nuts! Woo! Upside down! Woo! Okay. Whoa, my shakalaka! As I was saying, just because you've signed a liability waiver does not mean you no longer have any legal rights. It's up to the courts to determine the validity of a liability waiver, not the individual, but oftentimes they do serve as a deterrent.
All right.
A warning of sorts. Thank you very much. That was great.
And this one's my second favorite.
This one was great. You got a good view of the city. They do serve as warnings and oftentimes are recognized as valid by the courts, but it is up to the courts to recognize a liability waiver as valid. Oftentimes they can be overstretching, over-exceeding, overreaching, and attempts to exonerate people from things and acts that they cannot be absolved from. This is amazing. All right, look at this village. This is just magical. Do you know that I cannot necessarily validly sign away your rights and interests as a minor, even though I am your legal guardian? Now you know. We shall finish this over coffee. And there you have it. Thank you for coming along with us today and enjoying our adventure. I hope you learned something. I hope you got to see some beautiful views. It was awesome. Objectively awesome. The equipment was brand spanking new, which for a neurotic person like myself makes me feel a lot better. Now, I used to be a rock climber as an adolescent, so I know how that type of equipment works. I know how long it's good for. I know how strong those carabiners are, so I have a lot more confidence in that type of equipment, but it is nice to see brand spanking new equipment. By the way, everyone, if you like this content, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below, share my channel with somebody and anybody who will listen, even if they don't have a YouTube account. Peace out.